I am. I guess one question that I want to kind of jump into before to start us off, and I'm hearing this a lot from a few different people, and you covered us in the book. I don't want to.
Yeah, you still got an old tattered
I
copy.
don't
I
ever
need to
want to
send
miss
you
a
a new
chance
one.
to tell the people about the book. Make sure that you guys go to www.transportationlaw.net and go get Rules of the Road. Hank Seaton has a book out there. I call it the Bible of the transportation industry. You definitely need to keep one of these bad boys handy. It will help you navigate the different things within these contracts that you are signing. And because of the modernization of these contracts, Hank, that everybody's kind of gone to the model now where, the RMIS, where you don't really get a contract per se, or you can't scratch out line items. It's pretty much take it or leave it. Um, so when people are running into issues with those type of contracts, if they're running into an issue of, say, if we'll just use a real common thing, trying to get paid for detention, what's something what's an antidote that might be able to help them out if they have signed on and are dealing with brokers, and you're dealing with on the spot market, and you're dealing with those particular types of contracts, and you're
Well,
trying to protect yourself
yeah,
on getting attention.
there are two terms that describe contracting in the postmodern world, and that is the rule of law and the rule of the jungle. The rule of the law used to say, and still really does say, that the default mechanism is to the carrier's terms and conditions, a copy of which is available upon request. But particularly in truckload and others, the law of the jungle says that the shipper dictates the terms. And when you mention RMIS or My Packet or whatever,
Right.
those people started out uh, making money by aggregating carriers who were using brokers. And what they basically did was they kept checking the FMCSA database. So if 1,000 people were using you and you got in financial trouble or lost your license, that would all immediately go to these 1,000 people. That took folks off of their billing, so that everybody was having to check out folks. It was just a question of multiples. But then the brokers got the idea, well, why don't we just have them uh, manage our contracts? And so what they started doing is uh, telling you, go to RMIS and let them fill out the paperwork. And RMIS, when you said, hey, look, I ain't got $3 million worth of insurance, they'd say, well, gee, I don't have the power to change that. So the buck stopped with MRIS. And, for a little guy trying to get home from Keokuk, it was kind of, what kind of Russian roulette is this? I ain't got $3 million worth of insurance.
Right.
And unfortunately, uh, uh, it's uh, uh, it's always kind of been the rule with the shortage of freight and the whole purpose of the spot market. The response, if you get to the traffic manager of a big broker, is, "Oh, look, I don't know why you won't sign it. Everybody else does. We can find somebody else."
Right.
So, have a happy life. Well, that's the law of the jungle. And ultimately, I've used the analogy. I think people understand there's a time to hold them, there's a time to fold them, time to run away, and ultimately, it makes trucking into a crapshoot. You can say, well, gee, uh, they're big. At least I know I'm going to get paid. Well, that may be great until, they've got a $250,000 cargo claim and your insurance company wants to walk away from it. The reason really is pretty clear. A very large broker who doesn't have to make payments on trucks, who doesn't have to buy fuel and those things, will set up a huge reserve.
Right.
Okay, and that's like I keep using the gambling analogies, and I don't gamble, but it's kind of like it's kind of like the house. Okay, the house can have somebody hit a jackpot, and
Hmm.
one night can be really bad, but they play enough, and the margins there that they're going to ultimately hit their margin.
Right. The house is
And
always gonna win.
so then what they do is they build in a rainy day fund, which is their cost of doing business. And they try to pass their cost of doing business on downstream to Two Truck Charlie. And if he doesn't have the money, then, $5,000 to him may be whether or not he makes a payment on the truck. But it's accounted for in by the big guys. So all they are is kind of arbitraging uh, the shipper's demand with this rainy day fund. And some of them, even though they play that game, will try to work with the small carriers to keep them around and do that. A lot of the rest of them will just tender you 5 loads, so they got a big enough reserve to deduct it.
Right.
And that's what we call the law of the jungle. And in dealing with other motor carrier lawyers, most of the money's with the big dudes. So most of the guys I deal with or go to the school that says it's procurement law, put in the contract whatever the carrier can bear. It's written very, very one-sidedly in terms of procurement law, because a lot of the guys that do it don't come with a truck background, so they don't really understand that sometimes the shipper should be expected to cover the excess, that you don't have the money to cover a cargo claim, and it's ultimately cheaper for the shipper to go out and get property insurance and waive subrogation than it is to expect a small carrier to all of a sudden materialize with a $250,000 policy. So I hope that kind of explains it a little bit. And if you just applied good business practices, and I know Rico, you do, it
I
would
try.
be
I'm not
it would
always
be
successful, but I try.
yeah, but it would really ultimately be a risk assessment. And by a risk assessment, I'm saying that you'd have a standard price, how much subject to fuel that it took you to get from A to B. And that standard offering would be, I got $100,000 worth of cargo, and I think it meets the CARMAC responsibilities. If that's not good enough for you, and you'll give me a whole bunch of freight, I'll have to go out and price getting you 250. But I can tell you when we go into it that if we're going to have a long-term relationship, it's going to be cheaper for you to get it than it is me. Now, if the guy wants to work with you, he'll understand that. But, at that point, it's kind of what kind of deal maker are you? Or do you have any leverage? Or do you just say, hey, this guy's reputation is terrible. I'm going to have to cross my fingers and hope that I can, not have a wreck, not have, kinds of perils that you ought to be insuring against happen.
So if you dealing with the situation, you got to have that type of contract, and you're just trying to make sure that you got some kind of way of holding them accountable. If you're going to try to get your detention or whatever, you need to make sure that that's something that's included on the rate confirmation. Or
yeah, what I've been trying to do without a whole heck of a lot of success is to tell particularly the asset-based carriers that are outsourcing their freight through a broker or affiliate that the best way to establish a permanent relationship with a small carrier which should be what they're really looking for, is consistency, and they take their share of the revenue, is to tell their customer, look, when I outsource the freight, I will warrant to you that my carrier has the same amount of coverage that I do, so that as a result of the relationship, uh, you can be expected to do no more than than they're willing to. And if somebody follows that, then a good broker would be someone who said, "Look, Mr. Shipper, my going in position is, like we said, $100,000 in cargo. Uh, I got detention charges. Here's what they are. Now, if you want me to quote you in the spot market, these are my rates subject to the fuel surcharge. So then, if you want to make a 10 or 15% commission, you turn around with uh, the same rate sheet to your carrier. The detention's a pass through or whatever, and you take your margin off the purchase price. At that point, as long as the guy you're dealing with is adequately insured, everybody's happy. But then the issue becomes, when you get the customer and you're a broker, and he says, "Look, I need $500,000 on this load. We're moving a tank or something." That's when you as a broker or you as a carrier have to say, "Look, I don't have that insured, and I don't feel comfortable taking a $400,000 uninsured loss." And that's when
So,
you tell them. That's when you tell them, whether you're a broker or whether or not you're a carrier, I'll have to go into the market, see if my carrier can get it or if I can get it. And if we
so
do, I'll have to tell you what the price is.